for some another day. All we do is scream into the night. Nothing ever tries to change, even if I want to realize. 'Cause I've been sitting here, same old ways, thinking of without the same mistake. Darling, will you go away? It won't be as simple for you.
Yo, guys, it's Old Man G here, back again, live from Red Devil Studio, and I'm joined by the lovely Maisie from Devils United. It's Top 10 United Players Weekly. Maisie, thank you so much for coming on to the show, and hopefully we'll be able to deliver you some fantastic content. Maisie, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm fine. In fact, after this week, I'm very, very happy, as I'm sure you are.
Mm-hmm.
New manager, Rangnick, good win against Crystal Palace. A certain Fred seems to have found some degree of form. Carrick left on a high, obviously beating Arsenal FC after they thought that they would somehow get a win against Manchester United. That was always fun, seeing the guys over AFT, shoot themselves in the foot. So, yeah, so for those who haven't been familiar with my Top 10 United Weekly shows I've done in the past, the general gist of it is that we try and spend this time to rank or discuss who we think are the best Manchester United players in terms of how they performed within the week. It is a ranking system, and usually to give some consistency week on week, we don't say, right, okay, this player's performed great one week and this player's another week and kick them out. No, we try and move things so we can build player consistency. So get involved in the comments. And I think I see Fox's Focus, who says, big up both of you. Love a good rating show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure you smash that like button. Really goes a long way, guys. So audience participation, obviously discussion between me and Maisie as well. So let's just get stuck into it, I guess. Let's scroll. So this is our squad here, right here. If everyone can see that, I hope everyone can see that. If we're starting from, because this is obviously the beginning of this, and we're focusing specifically on the Chelsea game, the Arsenal game, and the Crystal Palace game, who do you think was our number 10, at number 10 in terms of performance?
Oh, this is going to be so difficult trying to think of it. For number 10, I will probably have to go with Marcus Rashford for me. And the reason why for that is just because it just feels like at this moment in time, we're not getting enough form from Marcus Rashford. It just feels like he just feels a little bit non-existent in the games. It just feels like he isn't the same Marcus Rashford as he was before he got injured. And I do question, is it because of him being at Ollie and all, when he came through, it wasn't a good time for Manchester United and he's kind of get back into the game? Or is it the confidence issues due to from back when the Euros happened and he missed that penalty in the Euros final? There's definitely some question marks there with Marcus Rashford, but it just feels like he's not really adapted to the game as a starting 11 player, and he's much better as a substitute option. And all the times we have seen him this week, he has been that starting 11 player, and he hasn't been the best for me right now. So that's why I will go with a number 10 option.
Fine. Okay. And I'm just trying to think, is there any in my top 10 list? Is there any? Because he played. Just in the games to play, he played. He played against Arsenal, definitely.
He played against Chelsea, two up front with him and Sancho, and he played yesterday as well.
So he did play other games. Yeah, he got a point, Maisie. I mean, he's not in none of those games. He didn't he didn't really do anything that really stood out. Really, as you said, he's pretty much been a ghost, and you can make a case he's arguably potentially been one of our worst performers. Actually, I'm just thinking of any. There's so many players in that week that I think have performed better, but obviously we're going to discuss
Yes.
that. So, but yeah, I don't disagree. We can always come back to some of this stuff, and obviously if the people in the comments have their opinions, then obviously let us know. But yeah, let's put a Marcus Rashford number 10, because again, I don't really. And where is Marcus Rashford? There he is at number 10. Okay, so that's Marcus Rashford at number 10. Right. Number 9. I think it gets trickier as we go forward. Looking at this squad, obviously De Gea, Ronaldo. You got obviously the fullbacks in Telles and Dalot have had their games as well. What do you think? What do you think? I have someone, I think, but what do you think?
If I was going to put someone at number 9, I would go for Scott McTominay.
Okay.
And the reason why I would go for Scott McTominay, I know he's been always played in that double pivot next to Fred, but Fred has really stood out to be a much better player in these last 3 games compared to Scott McTominay. He does too many back passing for me, too many side passing, not enough going forward passing, and a lot of the games where it just feels like he's either jogging or he's a mannequin.
Okay.
And he's not done enough for me at all, and that's why I will put him as number 9. I think he's been a little bit better compared to Rashford, but I think he hasn't been good enough for me to be ranked any higher.
I think that's a fair case, and I'm just.
Who was you thinking?
Because I guess in my mind, Maguire and Lindelof have to be in the top 10. Because to be honest, they haven't done. I mean, if you think about it, they kept yes, they didn't keep a clean sheet against Arsenal, but I can't really blame them for both of those goals that we conceded, really, because the first goal against Arsenal was ridiculous. I don't know what happened there. You know, it was against Crystal Palace, they kept a clean sheet, and against Chelsea, that was a penalty, and again, it wasn't their fault. So to be honest, they've been fairly solid by their standards in terms of going forward. So, but then I feel that in that, like you said with McTominay and Fred, I feel that Lindelof has been a bit better and above and beyond than Maguire has. So I'm almost thinking maybe.
And Lindelof has played all 3 games as well,
exactly,
compared to Harry Maguire, because Harry Maguire was suspended for the Chelsea game, and it was Bailly who took his place. And if it wasn't for that penalty being given away by Wan-Bissaka, we would have had a clean sheet against Chelsea as well.
Exactly. So it's like a part of me is leaning almost towards putting Harry Maguire here, not because it's as a slight on him, but just because I can probably think of maybe 8 other players in the sort of overall score in terms of performance that have had better performances than him. Would you agree or disagree, or?
I would agree with you. I'd definitely put Harry Maguire in there. Do you know, I'm just thinking when you're looking at the top 10 and then you're looking at all the players who's played, you do think, oh, who do I put on?
Exactly. So I think we could always come back and review and be like, actually, should this really actually? I mean, Chainsaw, and thank you for coming in chat. Chainsaw, Harry doesn't deserve that level of praise. Top 10 is too high. And the thing is right, but the thing is we're just going based on the 3 games over the last week. So that's Chelsea, Arsenal, and Crystal Palace. And there was a clean sheet against Palace. I don't really blame him for the 2 goals that we conceded against Arsenal, because the first one was just, I don't know what happened there. That was just a ridiculous, a creep goal. And then the second one, it probably would say it was more McTominay and Fred where it was coming out. So yeah, Maguire then.
Maguire it is.
Maguire, and we'll come back. Okay, where is he? Where's Maguire? I'm blind. There you go. There's Harry Maguire, man. There's Harry Maguire. Okay, it gets some more comments coming. Thank you guys for going to the show. We make it a good show, guys, with the comments. Youth will experience like the old days of a good coach. Many of these players are going to excel. Go on United. I feel many of us are going to be shocked onwards and upwards. thank you, Colin. Appreciate it. Appreciate for tuning in. Guy from the United States, I appreciate your support. Larry Laguire says EFC. And Shameful says, but I think there are 10 better players than him in the last 3 games. Get involved. Guys, for those who are watching, let us know, because me and Maisie are discussing this. Bloss, if you have your 2 cents and what you think and who should be in this position, let us know, because we're going to come back and review some of this as well. It's an open, interactive discussion, but hopefully a weekly discussion. So let's go forward. And Tio says, smash that like button. Thanks, mate. Number 8. Number 8.
For the reasons I've mentioned, I'd probably just put Scott as number 8, just because I felt like there was so many players ahead of Scott McTominay who's been better. Like, I actually think Lindelof for me hasn't had a step wrong. Fred's had a brilliant. Sancho's been brilliant as well. Bruno, Ronaldo. There's so many big names. So Scott McTominay's played all 3 of them games as well. So that's why I'll put Scott McTominay as 8th.
Fine. Okay. I can't. Scott McTominay had a better than Maguire. It's difficult because, like, I do kind of blame him for the second goal we conceded against Arsenal. He against Crystal Palace, he wasn't bad, but I think it's just because he was just outshone by Fred in that game. And in the Chelsea game, like, again, it's. I almost think that maybe right. Maybe I'd have to put McTominay over Maguire. This is tough, actually. This is tough. Okay, let's put McTominay at 8th. Let's put McTominay at 8th. Let's put him at 8th. And come back. But I think either Maguire or McTominay could fluctuate between 8th or 9th, to be honest. But I guess I'm sort of thinking when you look at like Telles, Dalot was 2, Ronaldo was there, Bruno was there, Fred is there, De Gea is there. Who else is Sancho is there? So that's already 7. And then I think, is there anyone else else outstanding? No, I think those are probably the 7. So maybe it might be a bit more straightforward. So let's put McTominay here then. Where's McTominay? McTominay. There you go. There's McTominay. There you go, man. 8th. So United's 8th best player, Scott McTominay. Let's see what Chainsaw says. He's given his in De Gea. Oh, so is this? That's the top. Azim's first to second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Okay, fair. I mean, I would debate the Van der Beek one just purely because in those 3 games, did he really have much game time? He didn't play. I can't remember if he played against Chelsea or if he just came on for the last few minutes. Likewise with Arsenal. So I'm not saying he's bad, but it's difficult to. Random order. 10 players. 10 players. Random. Okay. Yeah, I think the only thing I'd have is Van der Beek, just purely because I just don't think he's played enough. But this is where I think it gets interesting now, because I think of the 7 players that were mentioned in there, and I've said, I think these have probably had more noticeable performances. So, Maisie, I'm curious to see what you think. Who's your number 7 and why?
My number 7, it'll probably be Dalot, because I think Dalot was absolutely brilliant against Crystal Palace. However, he wasn't as good as against Arsenal. He didn't have enough game time. He didn't have no game time versus Chelsea. But when I do look at him against Crystal Palace, he was absolutely superb and going forward. He had a couple of good defensive moments as well, whereas I just felt like he was a bit more all over the place against Arsenal. So that's why I will put him in 7th.
Okay, down 7th. And then let me scroll back to here. It's difficult. I mean, obviously, I love Bay, but again, he's not played enough, unfortunately,
Yes.
and that's my thing with him. It's probably going to be between him and Telles, to be honest. I would say. So I agree with you in that respect. Telles obviously is coming for sure, and it's probably been a bit more consistent. Yeah, okay. I don't Maisie, your logic is sound. I'm like thinking I can debate this. So I think maybe when it gets to top 5 or 6, it might get a bit more difficult. So but yeah, it's gonna be between him and Tellez. And so I assume that even 7th or 6th are pretty much sorted. Would you agree in putting
Yeah,
Dalot at 7th and Tellez at 6? Is that pretty much I think
yeah. What I would do, I'd probably put Dalot, Lindelof, then Tellez.
Dalot, Lindelof, and then Tellez.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's where I would disagree. That's where this because I think Lindelof low key in the 3 games has been pretty considering that
Yes.
to step in with Bayern. I think that when I look at obviously like he was immense against Crystal Palace. Again, much like in Arsenal, I don't fault him for any of the 2 goals that we conceded. And even against Chelsea, I thought he was actually really solid. He's ironic enough, he's Harry Maguire, in my personal opinion, is our 4th worst defender at present. If Varane and Bailly are fit and Lindelof is fit, for me, he's our 4th choice. Obviously,
I
Phil
agree.
there. So the thing with Lindelof as well is that like he's a lot more comfortable on the ball and his distribution. He can make a brilliant ping pass and potentially create assists, something that Harry is not. And his positional sense is at least a bit better than Harry Maguire's, in my personal opinion. So I would actually put in my opinion put Lindelof a bit higher, but.
For me, with Lindelof, he's absolutely brilliant. I actually think he's improved so much in terms of this season. Because if you look at Lindelof last season, a lot of people thought he was very weak on the ball. He wasn't good enough. And it was more like, oh my God, Harry Maguire's injured. What are we supposed to do? But this season, it's, oh my God, Varane is injured. What are we going to do? But when you do look at Lindelof, he's bringing a lot more qualities than what Harry Maguire's got. He's quicker than Harry Maguire, for 1. For 2, I actually think right now he's better in the air than Harry Maguire. He's the one, and he's a lot more better, and he's 1-on-1s at the moment than Harry Maguire as well. So I actually think Lindelof and Varane are the 2 centre-back partnership, I'd have right now as our strongest 11 if everybody was fit. But I just feel like with Tellez, he's been absolutely brilliant. And knowing that how Luke Shaw had been last season, he had a big role to fit coming into the starting 11 playing, knowing Luke Shaw's not been at his best. And I actually think right now Tellez is the best at set pieces, his corners, his free kicks as well. And I think a lot of people think he's not as good as in defending. He isn't as best. He's superb at going forward. I know he's not the best at going in his defence, but against Arsenal, I couldn't fault his defence whatsoever. 7 tackles won. He had quite a few clearances. He was very good on his 1-on-1s, and I really could not fault Tellez one bit on that Arsenal game at all. I think he was absolutely brilliant. And Luke Shaw, I actually think he's going to struggle to get into his starting 11 if Tellez continues with his form.
No, that's Maisie, you just completely you've done it, like complete analysis. Like I need to have you on the channel more often. So like maybe we should do another show, a tactical breakdown show, because I can't add anything to that. Because you're right. And I think that especially when it comes to Luke Shaw, and it'll be very interesting to see how Rangnick goes about things when it comes to pressing and stuff like that, to pressing and how because I've always said that Tellez is much more of an attacking. Not that Shaw's. I mean, last season, Shaw going forward, his crossing ability was great. And we even saw that this season with some of his assists that he's given. But I just think that Tellez hasn't had the opportunity to really have a run of games to actually prove himself. Dalot likewise. And I think that, I don't think there's any doubt that people would disagree that Wan-Bissaka isn't better defensively than Dalot. I still think that even if Dalot was given multiple games, that Wan-Bissaka will still be better defensively.
I agree.
That's not for debate. But we just don't get a lot of attacking quality from Wan-Bissaka. And so if there's a way to balance that side, unfortunately, you can do it. So let me just quickly get some of the comments. Let's have a look. Replace Dalot Van de Beek in my 10 is sorted. Shout out to Draco Evolve. Man, long time no see, brother. He was me and him started the YouTube channels around the same time, and he's taken a bit of a break. due to parental responsibilities, which is fair enough. I hope you're doing well, brother. And let me know when you're coming back to the YouTube game, so let me know. And I think Chains was talking about, I think we're talking about De Gea getting more game time. What's this top 10 about? Top 10 Manchester United players, ranking the top 10 Manchester United players for their performance. Chainsaw says Luke Shaw as a backup is incredible. That is true, if that's the case. And Draco says, for CB positions, it's paramount that we have consistent long game time to go to the partnership. That is absolutely the case. It's why, I mean, and I'll let me know your thoughts on this, Maisie. So, but obviously, we do believe in the quality of Varane. But if he's obviously injured all the time, is it worth the risk disrupting a centre-back partnership to bring in a Varane if you're playing Lindelof or Bailly or Lindelof and Maguire, for example? Or do you think it's worth it?
It depends, really, if you want me to be fairly honest, because if you look at the centre-backs, what we do currently have, we need to look at, is a Maguire and Lindelof going to work in every single game? And my answer is no, it's not going to work in every single game. If Bailly's the same as Varane, is he always going to be fit? And the answer is going to be no, because if you look at Bailly, if he has 4-5 games straight in a row, he'll get injured. And I think with Varane, he's also quite delicate, and I think he got rushed back too soon the last time, and we need to be very careful because he does get injured quite a lot. So I think at this moment in time, I still definitely will put Varane in, especially over Harry Maguire, because I just don't think Harry Maguire is fit to be a starting 11 player right now based on the current form. But what we need to work on Varane's fitness levels, so we can try and do something to make sure he's not injured as much, just to try and be a little bit more careful in what we do, how we approach our games as well. And we should really start him in, like, if for instance we was like Norwich City and he was fit for that, don't take the risk against Norwich. But then if we're playing in the Champions League and we're in the knockout stage and we've got PSG, start him. You don't have to start him in every single game, but I just think at this moment in time, there's too many there's a couple of centre backs who's not fit for purpose to be in the starting 11 right now.
No, I agree, mate. I agree, Maisie. So on our 7th, we're saying 7th definitely Dalot. I think we agree with that. And let me know in the chat, guys, what your thoughts are. So I'll bring on and the fact that Andres Pereira is still there is laughable. But is what it is.
You did touch on about Wan-Bissaka before being one of the best kind of defensive kind of right backs. In this kind of day and age, you do want that kind of centre back who can do that right back, who could do that a little bit of both. When you do look at it, for instance, like Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's absolutely brilliant in going forward, but he's not so much as brilliant in his defensive issues. But the difference is between Wan-Bissaka and Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's got pretty much two brilliant centre backs next to him who can sort out the issues if that's the case. And he's got Fabinho in front of him, he's got Jordan Henderson in front of him. Whereas when we look at our midfield, we don't have a proper CDM to help us out. When we look at our centre back issues, the only centre backs who we really have who are quick enough to sort out any kind of issues on the right would be Varane or Bayer. I just don't feel like Harry Maguire is quick enough, and he goes forward too high for me, and he's like, oh my god, proper trying to run back to get back to the like the box, and sometimes he's not there quick enough. Lindelof can do that sometimes, but there is that odd game where he can be a little bit too weak on the ball at times. But at this moment in time, I just feel like Dalot, he may get better at defensive his defence, but Wan-Bissaka, he's had more than enough time to improve his forward play. I know he's improved that a little bit, but when you look at rival teams like Reece James, for me right now, he is the best right back / right wing back in the Premier League. And nobody compares to Reece James right now. And when you see Wan-Bissaka, who's very rash, he's brilliant at his one-on-ones, but he's awful at going forward. It's just a bit of a shame. And people said, oh, when we bring Sancho in, it'll be much better. He's had a couple of games with Sancho on the right, and he's still not improved.
Still not great, yeah. I mean, with Ragnick coming, I'm obviously willing to give every player a clean slate, so and to see how his coaching and what that and whether that improves things. Because you're right, you could make a case that he's probably regressed since he came from Crystal Palace to a certain extent. And I think Chainsaw even says here, not to sound harsh, but United need at least 4 players switching defensive areas to challenge for a league. Rag will have to vote the team of tactics are to be implemented, and I think we agree with that. I'll just go through a few comments, but this is a really good show, guys, and appreciate the tactical analysis from Maisie and everyone in the chat. Let's have a look where we Chainsaw says Maisie the GOAT, so and I wouldn't necessarily disagree. So I think that was Draco. Dalot was brilliant last season on loan. I think against one of games he will shine. Colin says most of our guys have a Euro hangover. I can't imagine how it must feel to lose it in pens and major final, but they must shake it off. But mentality, Ragnick will fix it. Well, fingers crossed for that. I'll be back after the season. Fair enough. Well, hopefully have you back, buddy. Hopefully have you back. Let me know when you're coming back and you can come on. Shout out to Red United TV. Big up, just tuned in. Thank you so much, buddy. Red Devil Weekly says, and he's a United channel. Please head over and subscribe to his channel. Do you think down the line Ragnick will trust Harry Maguire and start him every game? Maisie, what do you think about that?
It's a real tough one to answer, to be fairly honest. There's several things what I do think about Harry Maguire. For one, he is a very good centre-back when he is on good form. But as he is right now, I don't think he is that fit enough to be in the starting 11 lineup, especially if everybody is fully fit. But I think what could really help Harry Maguire out is if maybe he got that captain's armband taken off him, maybe. And because I think when you wear the captain's armband for Manchester United, it's a very big responsibility knowing all the captains who we've had in the past. Because we've had brilliant captains. We've had Gary Neville as a captain. We've had Cantona as a captain. We've had loads of big leaders in the past at Manchester United and loads of brilliant centre-backs at Manchester United. Vidic, Rio Ferdinand, Yap Stam. There have been loads of different amazing centre-backs. Steve Bruce as well. Not so much as a manager, but as a centre-back. Can't fault him on that. But I think knowing that the club is at, knowing he's the captain, I think it's too much for him. And especially knowing before Manchester United, he's never had any kind of captaincy experience. He hasn't had it at Leicester, hasn't had it for England. Why did he get given the captain's armband? That's my big question. And I think if he gets taken off him and he starts performing that a little bit better, I think he will start trusting him more. But at this moment in time, I don't believe he will trust him.
Fine. That's fair. I mean, I'm going to be real and say that he's the club captain, and I just think that the hierarchy, because I can't remember the last time. The only time I remember us stripping a captain is when they often say something out against the club or the manager. That's why I think David De Gea was stripped of the captaincy, because David De Gea should be the captain. In terms of the experience, stuff like that. In terms of he's the most experienced player in terms of longevity that has been at the squad so far. Ronaldo has never really been a captain, whichever club he's been at. I'm not saying he can't be one, but he's never been one. So really, you probably give it to David De Gea. Maybe Bruno, because he was a captain. I mean, even Tellez, but they've not been at the club as long as, say, David De Gea, so you can default to them. So I just think that unless Harry Maguire does something ridiculously stupid that puts the club into disrepute, that they wouldn't want him to strip him of the captaincy so soon. Now, whether or not Rangnick has the kahunas to drop Harry Maguire if he's not performed particularly well remains to be seen. But one of the things about this game against Crystal Palace, which I think was good when we saw it, was that if you're pressing all the time and your fullbacks are bombing forward, then there isn't actually that much pressure on the defenders to do anything in the first place. So if we can actually, because we're so used to seeing football where we're constantly having the ball in our half and then we're counter-attacking. Whereas for the first 30 minutes of that game, it was actually good. And I saw it once against Everton when Ollie was around, where literally for most of the half, you're camped into their box. You're putting pressure, you're pressing, you're winning the ball up high. If you're doing that for most of the game, then obviously it doesn't really matter that much who's playing in defense because they're not getting got at in the first place. So does that make sense?
Yeah, Chainsaw did mention something about Harry Maguire with that Greek incident, and that from
Yes.
that point, I did realise that should have been that point where he should have been stripped from that captain's armband, because when you are doing a serious incident like that, you can't exactly remain as the captain. You need to do it just for the club's sake. But I think with the captain's armband as well, no matter how rubbish you play, he is going to still get played, because there's going to be question marks and like, why are you not playing your captain? Why is your captain on the bench? Why is he not in the starting 11 full stop? And I think it raises a lot of questions and a lot of publicity towards the club. So I think that is why he will always get played. And I think in a way, a lot of all the captains, when they do play pretty awful, they do hide behind that captain's armband. So I definitely think regardless, he will play depending on his form, unless he does get stripped from it. If I was going to pick a captain who I would pick, I would personally go for Bruno Fernandes. I believe more in a midfield or a defender to have the captain's armband, just because they have a bit more of more of a job to do on the pitch compared to a striker and a goalkeeper. They're more all over everywhere. That's why I would personally prefer to have a midfielder or a defender. So if I was going to pick, I'd do Bruno Fernandes. He's got that voice. He's very vocal. You can tell the leadership qualities he does have at Manchester United. And for that reason, I would have Bruno Fernandes. I know a lot of people had mentioned about David De Gea, you included. And for me, with David De Gea, the thing what really lets me down more than anything, a lot of the time he isn't very vocal. And I like my captains to be very vocal. Like, do you like when you see like your player doing rubbish and then you're like, what are you doing? Like, kind of thing, go over there, like, kind of thing. You see that more, like, a lot from Bruno, but you don't really see that voice of David De Gea, and that's the only thing that really lets it down more than anything.
That's fair, and I think it's more just. I think for me with De Gea, it was more just the fact that he's just been at the club for the longest, really, you know. So, and then just for longevity. But I agree. I ideally prefer captains that are actually non-goalkeepers that can be involved in the games. They can galvanize the troops, but there just isn't right now anyway anyone that I would say in that team. Bruno, I think, is a second good shout, because you can see the passion that he has. Whether they would give it to him or not, I'm not entirely sure. You know, Ronaldo, you could, but again, he's not been Ronaldo's not been a captain. He wasn't a captain of Madrid because it was Ramos. He wasn't a captain of Juve because it was Bonucci. So I don't think he's ever really been in that role. Maybe that puts less pressure on him. Let's quickly go back to our top 10. Actually, we had a really good interesting diversion. So we've still got like 6 more positions. We put Dalot at 7th. So I think, do we agree? Was it going to be Telles or Lindelof? I think that was the debate, really. Was it? So he is the Portuguese captain. Sorry, of course, when I was the Portuguese captain, that's true. Do we agree? So we're thinking Telles or Lindelof?
What would you prefer?
I would put in Telles.
Put Telles there.
Yeah,
put Telles there then. And then Lindelof will be fine with me.
Over. So that should fit on the 2. All right, let's have a look. Where's my man Telles? There you go. Let's get you to 6. And then 5th. So we're saying the 5th best player for United is
Lindelof.
Okay. I never thought I would say that.
I've always liked Lindelof. I think he's very underrated. When you do look at the centre-backs who we have got at the club, a lot of people really discredit Lindelof, and I think he's very underrated in terms of the crosses he does. Like, he's already had 2 assists in the Premier League so far.
Yeah.
Just due to the crosses he does. And
that
is very vital when you have a team who plays a low block and you need them kind of crosses to come through.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. And that's what I said, for me, one of the reasons why his you know, him and, you know, with like a Varane or Bailly, Maguire really kind of puts us in a predicament where it's like we have to put someone with Maguire. But to be honest, the idea is that we put someone with Lindelof. And I don't think it's any coincidence that when Maguire hasn't started, we've conceded less goals. In general, we've conceded less goals. We just have, you know, by Lindelof, Varane with Maguire. It just seems to just work, you know. Chainsaw's Lindelof is a West Ham centre back TB. And that's not, well, to be honest, that's you could make a case that that's a compliment this season because they're 4th, you know. So that's where we need to be, right? At least at a minimum, definitely, you know. Right. Okay. So thanks everyone for commenting, and make sure you get if you have any questions, stuff like that, get it into us. It's been a great show and hope you guys are liking what you're seeing. This is where it gets interesting now. Okay. So I obviously Lindelof is snuck into 5th, but we've got 4 spots, and presumably you're gonna have Fred, Bruno,
Ronaldo
and Sancho as 4 in a particular position. Oh, De Gea.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh man. Oh yes, that's 5. Oh, one of these guys is gonna drop out because
Maguire out.
Yeah. Okay, bye Harry Maguire, man. Yeah, you gotta put De Gea in. You gotta put De Gea. So if it's 4, you gotta put De Gea here. So if we take Maguire out, sorry, bro, and put De Gea,
maybe another day. I'd say knock everyone down by 1, and
put
then
De Gea 5th.
I would put. Oh, it's a hard one because
he made some pretty, even like Arsenal game. I remember like the Arsenal game when he made that save from the cross or the corner, and against Chelsea. He's in every game.
Wow.
He's made at least a key clutch save. I think you might have to put De Gea as 5th. I think.
I would personally put Bruno as 5th and then De Gea as 4th. The reason for why with Bruno, I know he got his goal against Arsenal.
Yeah.
But the thing is with Bruno, there's been a couple of times where, especially in the Chelsea game in particular, he was very fatigued in the second half. He didn't do too much for me. He was getting very frustrated.
Yeah.
He did well against, obviously, Arsenal. He got his goal. But when you look at, you think, Bruno's quality, what we have seen of him last season, he got the highest goals for a midfielder ever in the Premier League. You expect a little bit more than just 1 goal of Bruno Fernandes in 3 games. I know maybe I'm just over-expecting myself about Bruno Fernandes, but when you've seen such high quality about him, I just think he should be.
I legit don't disagree, actually, Maisie, because the reason why I was pondering was because I was actually thinking, has he himself done enough to go ahead of some of these players that we've got here? Definitely better than obviously McTominay and Rashford. But even thinking about the fullbacks and Lindelof, I'm thinking, has Bruno really done? Yes, he scored that goal, but as you said, at times he's been a passenger. I would make a case that I think that Lindelof has had a better 3 games than Bruno has.
I agree.
Positions, and the fullbacks only. I think for me, the reason why I would put the fullbacks high is just because Dalot and Telles have barely had any game time. So the fact that despite having little game time, they've been able to come into a team when obviously Wamsak and Short out and been able to at least deliver a performance and deliver it to a good standard. That's commendable. Bruno may be tired, maybe, but he's been here for a while and he's not really picked up. So that's almost kind of skewed. So would it be wrong if you put Bruno Fernandes at 8th, basically?
No, that wouldn't be wrong at all. So move everyone up, apart from obviously McTominay and Rashford, then, because I know Bruno has. I think he's got 5 goals now in the Premier League. Because I think he's got 5 goals, and he's got the most chances created in the Premier League. But when you think of it, you might have created the most chances, but what have you done with them chances? He's scored 5 goals. But then when you look at the Champions League, he's got the highest amount of assists. But we haven't played Champions League football in the last week.
No, we've not. No, we've not. And we've got to go by, where is this man actually, Bruno?
He's at the top.
Yeah, there
Ronaldo.
There he is. They're all wearing red. Obviously, United, isn't it? So we've got Rashford. So let me just look at because I think someone said Rashford should come out. How many people have? So Lindelof is hitting yes. Bye. Harry says chainsaw. Draco says if it's the path for the past week, then Rashford should be out of the list. I thought Maguire was better than Rashford in his role last game.
It's a hard one, to be honest, just because when I look at it, He's
Go
still
on,
a
mate.
centre back, and he still conceded 2 goals. He
Yeah.
didn't play for one of the games, and even though he played good against Crystal Palace, there was a lot of players who was ahead of Harry Maguire.
Yeah.
I'd name at least 9 who were ahead of Harry Maguire.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why I would put Rashford at 10th. And when you do look at that goal against Chelsea, what Sancho scored, he
Yeah.
was literally right there, Rashford, and he had that pace
Yeah.
running forward after Sancho nicked it off Jorginho. I just
To
feel
be
like
honest,
he's just done that little bit extra more than Harry Maguire.
Harry Maguire has to do. I still haven't forgiven Harry Maguire for screwing up Leicester City and Liverpool. So he has to do. I know we should. It's clean slates, and we should put things to aside. But like for me, Harry Maguire has to do more than just like a standard performance to almost win back my. Because I've not. I can't remember a defender that conceded 4 goals, then 5 goals, then 3 goals, and was inadvertently at fault for most of them. So. He's not been bad, but it's like I think it's just because of the fact that our levels have been his levels been so bad this season that when he just does the basics, it's like, oh wow, like he's had a good performance. It's like he's just done what he was supposed to do, although again, you could make a certain extent case for Rashford. Shout out to Rich Sports.
Hey Rich.
Thank you, Rich, for tuning in, man. Really, really appreciate it. I think he's got a show at 10 o'clock as well, maybe doing a preview. Lindelof should be high. He was immense. He was very, very good. We're just, I guess, summarizing all the games. Says, it looks like Fred is going to do a job like I've counted Makaleli. I have high hopes all about the coaching and fingers crossed for that. Draco counteracts saying Rashford's forward didn't create a single chance. Would be interesting to see what shots on goal rush last 2 games. I mean, to be honest, it could be either or of them. Maybe I'm just biased against Harry Maguire because of of how he's been this season. It could be Harry or Rashford for me, but I think Maisie, we're going with Rashford being a 10, so it's not a democracy.
I still don't forgive Harry Maguire either. And the thing even though we conceded 15 goals in 3 games, and he got that red card, the thing what annoyed me the most is when he got sent off for Watford and they threw the captain's armband on the floor. And that annoyed me more than anything. My blood was boiling at that game. I was like, how could he do that? How could he disrespect the club like this?
Yes, yeah. They're throwing the... let's not talk about it.
Let's not.
Let's move on because we've got to have positive vibes here. And we are going to have positive vibes. I think we can talk about more about the next 4 players. So obviously we put David De Gea actually. David De Gea we're putting in
at 4 for me. David De Gea, all I can say is he's been our little light and shining arm of this season. Like I think a lot of people lost the kind of vote of confidence in terms of David De Gea last season, because when you look at him, he conceded quite a few goals, and the thing what annoyed me a lot with David De Gea was the fact that he the thing what annoyed me most was, do you know when we played that 3-3 against Everton last season and we conceded 2 in the second half? I solely blamed them on David De Gea, and I was like, nah, that's it. Put Dean Henderson on. And he obviously, that penalty shootout as well, a lot of people said it was his fault, but I personally do not blame David De Gea for that Europa League loss. I would blame other players before I would blame David De Gea, just because when you do look at it, there was so many opportunities and what nobody took. So I couldn't blame David De Gea for that penalty shootout, if you want me to be fairly honest, because we shouldn't have got to penalty shootout against Villarreal.
And to be honest, Maisie, like Ollie should have had the tactical nouns to be like, listen, Henderson is a better shot stopper than De Gea. Let me substitute David De Gea and put him. I know David De Gea isn't great at stopping penalties, so take him out, put Henderson in. Henderson will probably save at least one of those penalties. But he didn't do that because, it's Ollie. But sorry,
he didn't do it. But I think like you say this saying what a lot of people say, like you've got to get to your bottom before you get back to your best, and I think that's what happened with David De Gea. His rock bottom was that Europa League final loss, because when he came back as a brand new person. He saved 3 penalties this season, and the last time he saved a penalty was back in like 2017, 2018,
Yes.
and he saved 3 just in one season. The amount of saves he has, I think he's got the 3rd or 4th highest saves in the Premier League so far this season.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for David De Gea, I actually think the results like against Liverpool, against Watford, against Manchester City would be a whole lot more embarrassing if it wasn't for David De Gea. And he was absolutely immense for Chelsea. He made so many saves. He was absolutely brilliant, and he kept Chelsea very, very quiet. You do question if Lukaku was playing, would that at his full fitness, would that been different? But you can't think of it like that, because at the end of the day, they didn't take their chances. De Gea made them saves. So full credit there for David De Gea. I would definitely put him in that 4th spot because I think he's been brilliant, but there was them 3 players for me a little bit higher than David De Gea, so that's why I had to put him in the 4th.
That's fair enough. In answer to your thing, I don't. If anything, I think if Lukaku was playing, it probably would have been more comfortable for Manchester United. I think we would have won that game easily. So because it's funny though, because literally, what Chelsea when they play Lukaku or Timo Werner, they have the same issue that we have with Lukaku at Manchester United, which is I know. Lukaku needs support. He needs ball to feet. He needs you to create chances for him, put them on the plate, and if you give him the ball in the penalty box, he will score goals. That's his game. But Chelsea don't have players in their team to create, or not at least not a lot of players to create chances for Lukaku. And I think Reece James is injured, Ben Chilwell is injured, Kante is obviously out, but Kante's in great. But he's so when you take away the creativity from Chelsea, Lukaku becomes basically useless because he can't hold up the ball that well. His touch isn't good, and he doesn't really offer much else aside from the fact that he can basically bully defenders, and he's a good finisher when he's in the penalty box.
His first touch is awful, though.
His first touch is bad, man. It's so.
You know what I also think about Lukaku as well? When you look at Inter Milan, he's had one of the highest goals in Serie A. But when you look at it, he had another striker next to him. And I think Lukaku is miles better when he's got a striker next to him. And Tuchel doesn't play in that formation. He plays as a diamond formation, but he doesn't have a 2 striker up front. And you're getting what I was hearing about Tuchel wanting another striker in January. Like, mate, you paid 90-odd million for this man, and he's not doing anything for you. So why don't you play Kai Havertz and Lukaku up front, see how that goes? And do you also want to be alongside him, see if that helps in that little bit? Because I think when he's on his own, he doesn't do it. Yeah,
no, I absolutely agree. And this is obviously not on Chelsea's stream, but Tuchel, if you're listening, and Chelsea fans are listening, this is what you need to do with Lukaku. But as Conte said, he doesn't seem to know how to play him. Let me quickly just those comments before we go finish round up. This is how Maguire put his hands in his ears when he scored against part-times. Yeah, that annoyed me. I was what are you doing? Was it Albania, wasn't it? It's I scored a goal against Albania. It's it
was Albania. Yeah, it was Albania. And I think when we had the awful game against Watford, I was like, mate, take your hands out of your ears and listen to this criticism.
Yeah.
I was fuming even more after that performance.
Oh, of course, man. I was like, wait a minute. Arsenal are losing? How? I literally watched it, and they were winning 1-0 from the first half.
I'm having a look at
confirm that. That means that if Arsenal are losing, that means that Everton have scored 2 goals somehow.
Yeah, they've scored 2 goals. It's the 90 plus 5th minute. Richarlison has scored on the 79th minute. Demarai Gray has scored 90 plus 2. Odegaard scored on the 45th plus 2 minutes.
Wow. Arsenal fans, man. Arsenal fans.
This is the first win against for Everton in loads of. I think it's like 7
Yeah,
games
exactly.
or something.
Maybe
7,
this
8 games.
saves Benitez's job, but it's just funny because it's. I was telling even United fans, I was just kind of like, guys, this happens every season with Arsenal. They go on a decent run against often not great teams. They get gassed. They say we're back, and then they basically they say we're going to do this, we're going to do that. They big their chest themselves up, and then it falls apart. They've lost,
I agree.
back-to-back losses now, and I think, yeah, that means that we're ahead of them now because they need to win to go above us. So, but we'll
They're behind us now. They're behind on us now by 1 point. The thing is, though, with Arsenal, when they do good, it's when Arteta is under pressure. And when Arteta's not in pressure, they're rubbish again.
They're rubbish again, exactly. And Aubameyang has been a bit of a fraud this season as well. That is. Oh man, that never gets old. Shout out to SMB in the chat and also Almighty Blues FC as well. Go and subscribe to the channel. He does post a lot of good content as well. It's at 3:30 a.m. here, but always loving Arsenal loss. I mean, always everyone's loves Arsenal loss, man. Great screamer. I've got to watch the highlights of it. Right, let's finish up this top 10 list, man. So we're almost approaching an hour, but it's been a good show, and I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Hope you've enjoyed it as well, Maisie. We'll hopefully be back next week to deliver the top 10 goodness. So we've got 3 players now. So I assume we're thinking the same players: Ronaldo, Sancho, and Fred.
Yes.
Ronaldo obviously got his brace against Arsenal. I think he was a bit absent. He did kind of disappear against Chelsea, and also against Crystal Palace.
He didn't start, did he? And then he come on like the 70th minute.
Exactly, yeah.
For Sancho.
Yeah. And then we conceded, but
yeah,
not that was his fault. So, but
for me though, I've got to put Sancho in 3rd, and the reason why for that, he's been absolutely brilliant, Sancho, and I cannot knock him whatsoever. He got that brilliant goal against Jorginho, where he did, of course, take that ball off him, and Tuchel goes, "Oh, it was the Stadium of the Lights fault." Okay, but
it was
Sancho,
the lights.
If you look at Sancho when he first came to Manchester United to now, I felt like the Man United shirt was a little bit heavy on his shoulders, but he's got a lot more comfortable. He's grew into the game so much, and especially when he's come on the right now, he's just developed so much, and I'm really loving Sancho ball right now. He's absolutely a brilliant, and I think it was very, very clever from Michael Carrick to put 2 fast players as a forward 2 for when we counter-attacked. So I thought, very, very smart there from Michael Carrick. I think he's been very well, Sancho. But when you do look at, I think he's had like a couple of shots there. He's had a couple of good crosses, Sancho. But minus that, he hasn't done too much where I could stand out and go, he should be ahead of Ronaldo. He should be ahead of Fred. So that's why I would put Sancho as 3rd.
That's fair. It's a difficult one because, like I said, I mean, I love Ronaldo. And like I said, he got the 2 goals. I just think that obviously he didn't really do that much in the Chelsea game, and the Crystal Palace game at times you could see he was quite frustrated. Although I don't think he had a terrible game. So I'm just like wondering, whereas I think Sancho over the 3 games he's played has been quite consistent and quite involved. You could even make a case for Ronaldo like maybe he should be 4th behind De Gea potentially in terms of contributions, but he did get those 2 goals against Arsenal on the penalty.
And he had around 5 total shots against Crystal Palace. He was all over the place. And that was the first time at Manchester United I've seen Ronaldo press. It was the first time I've ever seen it. And I was like, what? Ronaldo pressing?
What's he doing? Exactly. Because that's not his... Supposedly it's not his thing, but again, that comes to the coaching.
He was all over the show, Ronaldo. He was contributing in defence. He was contributing up front. I think Ronaldo was absolutely superb against Crystal Palace. He was brilliant against Arsenal. Got that brace, what everybody loved to see. But it was just that Chelsea game what let him down. Whereas for me, it was with Sancho. What let Sancho down the most was the Arsenal game.
Okay.
So it's a difficult one. And when I look at all the teams over, like the 3 teams who we played overall and the performances we've had, that's why I'll probably put Sancho as the 3rd and Ronaldo at the 2nd.
So I'm gonna just Fox's focus says Arsenal fans, Fox, everyone else. We've got our Arsenal back. Yes, I will be tuning into AFTV again tonight. So whatever I did at the Manchester, there was the amount of compilations around YouTube when you saw, because I was like, how can these shameless fans celebrate that first goal, that fluky goal that they're all celebrating and laughing about, and then you see them, and Maisie, literally when they score their equalizer. And the joy of them celebrating the equalizer, only for them to realize they concede the penalty. It's priceless, man. It was absolutely priceless. To see the joy basically turn into sorrow was funny. And you
can say with Ronaldo as well, he won us the game for Arsenal. And that was the first win we've had since 2017/2018 or whatever, at home against Arsenal, and it was a pretty big win to have.
That's true. I don't okay. I'm convinced. So we're putting Sancho 3rd, aren't we? Where's my man? No, that's Lingard.
Yeah, where is Sancho?
Is he here?
Sancho, where are you?
What? This is the most up to date 20.
Oh, he's in the 2nd one. He's next to Hannibal.
Ah, yes. Here we go, man. There we go. Right, let's get you onto 3rd. So, are we effectively saying, because with the 2 left, and just go to comments, Chainsaw says tactical pressing matters the most, not a constant press. That's true. I've seen regards to Ronaldo. Partey hard. Yeah, Thomas Partey is Thomas Partey is a low-key flop, but no one wants to admit it. Colin says fantastic show. Thank you so much. And I'm assuming Aubameyang missed another sitter. Ali says Arsenal fans are the worst. Santiago Banterello says Partey was playing like Jemba today. Jemba bad. Jemba. That's right. So I'm assuming we're saying Ronaldo 2nd and Fred 1st.
Yes.
Is that what we're saying? Right. That's interesting. That's interesting. Sorry, 2 seconds.
I must admit, at the start of the season, I would never have put Fred at the highest player, but he's been amazing for me. Fred, he's definitely lived up to what we have always hoped for Fred. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. His tackles, you look at them tackles he done for Crystal Palace and Chelsea. Wow. And he's on the counter attack. He's seen a lot more forward play by Fred. I know a lot of people criticise Fred for that open sitter against Chelsea, but when you look at it, he was counter attacking quite a lot. Arsenal, he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. And Crystal Palace, wow. I've literally got no words for Fred of how well he has. It's a weekly one. It's
weekly, yeah. So it's just based on the last 3 games. So yes, obviously, if you look at the whole season so far, no, Fred wouldn't be here.
No, he wouldn't be
at all. But based on Chelsea, Arsenal, and recent Crystal Palace, I'd say in terms of consistent performance, you've got to put Fred at the top. And the thing is that like when I think you realize that Fred is not supposed to be a CDM. He's supposed to be more of a cam type midfielder, certainly going forward. And it makes a lot more sense. And at the very least, with Fred, you're getting something from McTominay. If Fred is the one that's pressing and pushing and going forward and making those key passes, because apparently in even the Crystal Palace game, he made double the amount of passes, had double the amount of touches, triple the amount of tackles that McTominay did. So, if Fred is doing all those things, then what is McTominay doing? So at the very least, I expect McTominay to at least be able to try and cover for Fred if Fred goes forward and make the tackles and be in the position and so forth. But it just seems that he just wants to be out of the game, in which case, maybe you should be trying Van der Beek there. I don't know what you think about that, Maisie.
It's a good one to mention, to be honest, because when you look at Fred, he's got 2 world-class CDMs at Brazil. He's got Casemiro, he's got Fabinho, at Manchester United, he doesn't have a CDM there, so because he's a more box-to-box midfielder, Fred. And when he played with Matic, I was thinking, okay, this is interesting. Playing free midfield, all right. But then I thought, okay, so maybe what they might do is Matic will play as a sole CDM, and then it'll allow Fred and Scott to go forward. But it wasn't the case with Scott, but for Fred it was, because he was counter-attacking really well. And I think if we do definitely have that CDM next to Fred, he can potentially be brilliant. But I actually think Fred is going to evolve so much under Rangnick. He's kind of pressing what Rangnick does is something what Fred suits. But in terms of Donny, it's a hard one with Donny, because for me, I wouldn't play him as a CDM.
Okay, yeah.
Because he's not really that CDM, because he's a lot more creative. He's one of them kind of players where he can get into narrow spaces and he can pass the ball through that way. He's a different kind of creative midfielder, what Bruno Fernandes isn't, what Scott McTominay isn't, what Fred isn't. And at this moment in time, I do wonder if we do play, obviously, two in the midfield, who would Donny suit to play on a regular basis, because a lot of people do question that Matic can't play every single game because he's getting a little bit older now. So this is why we really need that CDM, just because Matic can't exactly play every single game, as a lot of people do think. And so for me, that's the reason why I wouldn't put him as a CDM. A lot of people say, yeah, because he's physically strong now and stuff, but I just think he's too creative to be a CDM at this moment in time. And if Donny does start, it'll be because probably he's playing as that number 10 in Bruno's position.
Fair enough. Just last few comments before we round up here. Colin says, "God by Fred was a breaker up." It definitely was. Santiago Barrenta says, "I missed the first few, but do we think Rash is injured still? He looks off." That is a possibility. I mean, it's difficult. It's definitely impossible. When he came back, he looked sharp, but now it's like, so it's a possibility. I certainly think it's interesting that Alanga has obviously been included in the squad. And he obviously, Rashford, I think Alanga came on for Rashford, if I recall. So
yes, he did.
It would be very interesting to see how Alanga, because I think that Alanga and Ahmed should get a bit more game time. And to see what they're all about, and maybe he might give Rashford a bit of competition. Martial, we've got to see what happens with that. I'm not sure what's going on with Martial, to be honest. But does Rangnick think, you know what? Because I think it was leaked that apparently he was very impressed by Alanga in training.
Yes.
Maybe he thinks, you know what? And I think we'll get a good idea of it against Young Boys, and I'll be doing a preview for the Young Boys game tomorrow. That he'll make a lot of rotations, a lot of changes, and if Alanga maybe impresses a lot in that game, maybe Alanga gets more first team football. You know, do you have any thoughts on that, May?
I genuinely think that Alanga might actually make a start against Young Boys, and the reason for that is because we're actually in knockout football now. We're guaranteed knockout Champions League football, so it gives Rangnick that little bit of opportunity to actually get that bit of rotation, see what the players are about. I think the reason why Ahmad hasn't really played as well is the reason because Ahmad has been injured a lot. I think he was injured, and that's why he couldn't go on loan, because I think he was linked to a team abroad and also at Sheffield United. So he was linked to different loanees, and they both got broke down. And Sheffield United got broke down first, and then he was near enough going to the team abroad, but he got injured. And he was injured for quite a while, but he did go to Ivory Coast to play their international football, and I think he came back and he was taking a bit longer to develop, and I think he was starting coming back into the under-23s, and I think he is fully fit now. So maybe we might see a little bit of Ahmad at this as that right-wing player, maybe, because I think he's better on the right-hand side at this moment in time. But I definitely do think, though, when you do look at Alanga and Hannibal in particular, you look at them and you think, you haven't really heard these are going on loan compared to you see James Garner go on loan, even Lard on loan, Ahmad was going to go on loan. You've got a few other ones.
Brandon Williams
Brandon Williams is another one. It does make me question: is the back room staff seeing that Alanga is actually Manchester United ready? Because you can see what players are actually ready for Manchester United. Like Greenwood, he never had that low move and he just came straight into the team, but he took that little bit of time to come back into the team. He played a couple of substitute games first and before coming through. So I think especially if Rangnick is very impressed with Alanga, that maybe he might get that little bit more game time and he might make a little bit more of an appearance. And I think what definitely does help is the fact that Cavani is injured at the moment, Lingard is injured at the moment, also Pogba is injured at the moment, and all them can play obviously as an attacking option. I personally don't like Pogba as an attacking option with him as the midfield, but he still has played on that left hand side, but especially when you've got 3 attacking options injured, that gives that a little bit of more leniency to Alanga to show Rangnick what he's about. I actually was really impressed with Alanga when he did come on. But we have seen a little bit of Alanga, haven't we, last season, against Wolves. I think he did score. Did he score for Wolves?
He did score. Yeah, he scored. Yeah. Him and Aaron were good in that game. I agree.
And there was Leicester as well, where I know we was a loss, but it was like when we had that 3 games in so many days, and so that was really good, and it'll be interesting to see. I don't think he's going to be as a striker, but I think he'll be a left wing player if anything. I just don't think when you've got Cavani, you've got Ronaldo, and you've got Greenwood who can play in that option. I think he's not going to have no chance of getting in there unless all 3 of them are injured, which is very, very unlikely, 3 of them being injured at once.
I agree. So we're just going to round up here. Chainsaw, I live this channel because it says great show. As you know, boss, subscribe to your channel after the stream ends. And yes, guys, Maisie will hopefully be a regular on this channel. Hopefully I thought this was a great show. It sounds like everyone enjoyed it. We'll hopefully be doing this weekly every week from 9 p.m. We'll be looking at how the best United players in terms of the performance over the last week, getting all the comments, ask us questions. And like I said, head over, subscribe to Maisie's channel. It's Devils United. Subscribe and also follow on Twitter as well. She's a great co-host. I'm just going to read the last few comments. Streams gets best and better. Thank you so much, mate. Collins is United team with the best yet to come. Con United. United an actual inside forward. Sancho is one, but who's the other? That's fair. Superb show. My first show I'm attending after a long time. It was brilliant. Draco, and for those when Draco does come back YouTubing, make sure you check out his channel as well. And thank you guys. Thank you so much. Guys, if you're new to the channel, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter, United X. Smash the notification when we go live. Maisie, thank you so much for coming on. It has been a great show. Hopefully see you again on the channel. Thank you everyone in the comments. Take care, everybody, and cheers.